This episode of Wild Talk will keep you hooked. I'm joined by none other than Jimmy John Liautaud. We talk about his 84 sheep hunts, the time they tried to cancel him.
All you audience, hunting is the most effective form of conservation.
I'm joined by Brandon Molzahn from Tying Is My Vice, and he walks us through a fly you can tie yourself. And as always, the rock star Kate Rundle joins us with her epic social segment.
Wild Talk is brought to you by Aventura, Timber Stove, Hornady, and Wild TV Plus.
We are back with more Wild Talk. I'm your host, Steve Hamilton.
We are back at it for another social segment on Wild Talk.
This is going to be a fun episode. We have a massive personality. You guys should all know the name, at least from the sandwiches, Jimmy John Liautaud. So Jimmy, a huge thanks for making some time today to join me here on Wild Talk.
Absolutely. Happy to be here, man. I love talking hunting.
This is going to be fun. For those that don't know who Jimmy John is outside of the sandwiches, talk a little bit about you, your upbringing. Where'd you grow up?
Oh yeah. So my upbringing was northwest suburbs of Illinois, right where the suburbs met the farms is where I grew up, a town of 4,900 people. And northwest Illinois. Dad was a salesman turned plastic molder entrepreneur. Mom was a school teacher turned full-time mama, and never hunted in my life until I was about 23 years old. I grew up in the summertime. We have a cabin in northern Wisconsin, and that's where the Jack Link beef jerky family is from, Minong, Wisconsin. And so we're three-generation friends with the Links, who were big-time hunters. My first wife dumped me, and I was completely up in the head. And Jay Link, the oldest boy, took me hunting. I was 23, told me to get a backpack and a 7-mag, rain gear and a sleeping bag, and meet him in Anchorage. He's taking me on a Dall sheep hunt. So for $5,000 in 1988, I was 23 years old, and I went on a Dall sheep hunt. Never hunted in my life. That was my first hunt. That's how I got into it.
Yeah, I did some reading on that, and I went, what the hell? His first hunt was a sheep hunt. That's usually a bucket list for somebody that's put in the work, put in the training, dedicated years upon years upon years of studying the ranges, et cetera, and here you are going all in for your first hunt. Talk a bit about that experience. What was that like?
First of all, I got to Anchorage, expect to see my buddy Jay. I get a little note on my door. Bad weather coming in, left early. Somebody will pick you up in the morning to fly you to base camp. So now I'm like, oh shit. I go to bed. I wake up. Somebody calls me at 6. Take a cab to this location. There's a float plane there. I'm like, okay. I'm all excited. I'm gonna get on horses, and it's gonna be great. Fly to this, get in a float plane, land at this lake. It was called Post Lake up in the Alaska Range with Dennis Harms. I get up there excited to see my buddy Jay. Oh, Jay's gone out hunting. He just left on the last pack of horses. There's no horses left. You're going on a backpack hunt. I'm like, right on. So we're going to fly you out in a Super Cub. Here, we're going to take half your gear away. You can only keep this much of your We're going to fly you to this river bottom. There's going to be a 55-gallon drum there. We'll drop you off, take the lid off the drum, start unloading the there, and then we'll fly your guide in. I'm like, all right. So I go there, and there's a big grizzly bear foot in the riverbed. The drum's got a tent in it. So I started unloading it, and I was scared to death. I loaded my 7-mag, looking for the bear, unloading this anyway, Walt Rowe was my guide, and he landed on the strip, and he said, we got to wait till tomorrow morning to go. And so anyway, we got up at 5 a.m. And I never walked on those heads that are in the swamps. We have a word for them, but they're those grass heads, that are
Mhm.
swampy. Those you had to walk on that through all the shin tangles, through all the oaks, through the trees, up the shale. And we killed the sheep at 2 o'clock in the morning. We left at 6 a.m. It
Wow.
was 24 hours of light. We killed the sheep at 2 a.m. A storm came. We slept under a tarp without sleeping bags, and packed up that sheep and got back to the river bottom the next morning, and my head was out of my. I was freed from the drama of my divorce, and it changed my life, man. That changed my life. 81 sheep hunts later, I've been on 81 mountain hunts, goat and sheep, ibex sheep, whatever. But I've
Mhm.
done 81 now, so that unleashed the monster.
No kidding. 81
Yeah,
sheep hunts. I
yeah.
I can't even wrap my head around that. Where a lot of people may first recognize your name from the hunting world was, I think it was 2011. One of your African trips took heat. It went viral. And I remember people were going, oh, boycott Jimmy John's and
Yeah.
down with him. And I remember going, as a new hunter myself, going, wait a minute. This guy's one of us. Walk us through that situation of how that went down. Like, what was your first thoughts on going, wait a minute?
Well, really, what happened? The Republicans were off their game. The Democrats found an easy way in, and they started attacking me. And at the same time they started attacking me, this new thing came. The internet came and was introduced, and social media was introduced, and all of a sudden it was just simply used to exploit the lowest hanging fruit, and that's what happens. I was an entrepreneur. I'm
Yeah.
overweight. I'm a billionaire, and I kill lions and elephants. And boy, I must be such a what a great person to attack. A fat, overweight entrepreneur. Geez, and he's a hunter. Let's just kill him on everything that he's done wrong. I mean, and so that was a very normal thing. It wasn't. It was the way the world worked. I was the
Hmm.
first one to be canceled. How was it at the time? Brutal, so mean, so awful. And in the town that I lived in, so it was just like it was such a big deal. And but at this time I took it personally, and it's not personal. The whole internet is as fake as plastic lips, and I'm a sensitive guy. So to answer the question, it was brutal.
Yeah, I think you nailed it just perfectly there. It's you were the low hanging fruit. You were an easy target, and that seems to be quite the norm for a lot of these organizations and these people.
With all the people and all that I've gotten, the good news is I survived it.
I've been reading on the internet because we love the internet and the good that it does, right? But there's
Yeah,
just so much negativity and so much rumors. So I want to talk
sure.
about the rumor that you were at the Wild Sheep Foundation's big banquet and that Jimmy John bought the $1.35 million Desert Bighorn tag. Speak on that.
Yeah, first of all, it's a Rocky Mountain Bighorn. It's not a desert
Okay.
bighorn, and this is the tag in an area in New Mexico that for the Foundation for North American Wild Sheep
Mhm.
20 years ago,
Mhm.
we paid for a transplant into this area
Right.
in New Mexico that never had sheep before, and so last year it was the first year they opened it up for hunting, and so I bid. I was the high bidder last
Right.
year, and I bid $600,000, and I got the tag last year, and I shot a 209 gross
Unreal.
Rocky Mountain Bighorn, which is a giant. I think he was 208
Wow.
net Boone and Crockett. And so anyway, I did that last year, and then there were three additional draw hunt. There's a raffle hunter
Mhm.
and two draw hunters that get to go as well. So four hunters there in that area all killed sheep that were bigger than 200, and mine
Oh,
being the biggest. So to get a 200-inch bighorn is so difficult, right? It's like a 180 4x4 whitetail.
mhm.
Even a 170 8-point whitetail to me is the ultimate whitetail deer. This year, I got a call from Cameron Mitchell at Ovis, and Cameron asked me, he says, Jimmy, are you going to bid on the tag this year? And I said, no, I'm not. He said, I'd like to introduce you to a man named Louis Breland, who's an older gentleman, and he'd really like to have the tag, and I'd like to introduce you to. And I said, great. So I called this guy, Louis Breland. What a gentleman. He's Jimmy, nice to meet you. Heard about you. Da 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 da. He said, really want to buy the tag. I'm really going to do it. I said, no kidding. I said, listen, I know all of those rams. I said, I know the ram that I would harvest if I was you. I've got great video of him from all the angles. I've got still shots. I said, let me organize it all and send it to you. So we gave it all to Louis. We gave him all of our video, all of our shots. The scores that we think that this particular ram is. He is still alive. I know that for sure, and he's going to have a great hunt. And he's going to shoot a great ram. And so, but I was not even. I wasn't there. I wasn't even the second or third runner up. I wasn't there. But listen, just so everybody knows about this. The 208 and the 204 that I shot, we knew the ram was big in New Mexico. We didn't know he was 208 Nat Boone and Crockett. We thought he was 200. But his body was huge, so it made his horns look small. The Colorado ram, his body was small, it made his horns look huge.
Okay.
And so I knew the rams. I knew where they were. I had the money to buy the tags, and I bought the tags. I am not a better hunter than a 180-inch bighorn sheep hunter. I happen to have the means to be able to get myself to the place to do it. Okay. And I go with people that know that are really good at what they do. My buddies who hunt sheep are great. So just so you guys know, I'm not because I have this, I'm still the same Jimmy John, the
Hmm.
same guy I was before I shot the sheep as I am after the sheep. And I just feel really, really fortunate that I got these sheep. I was able to do it. The money went to a good cause. And then this year it just blew up because people are like, holy, we didn't know the sheep were so big there. And so, you know what? It's the beautiful thing about the free market. Let the free market speak. And the free market spoke. It spoke beautifully. And I was bitter on the Alberta tag. I was good. I went to 350 on the Alberta tag over the phone. The Canada tag went for 400. And so I was maxed at 350. That was my max. And they're going to open up some new areas this year in Canada that they hadn't opened up before to allow the hunter. Anyway, that was the story. Louis Breland got it. He is excited over the moon.
I bet.
He's a real hunter. I'm a country club hunter. Louis Breland's the real deal. He's hardcore.
I love that. It just talks about just how vicious the internet can be in a good way and a bad way, right? Those rumors, like it's already lit up that hunting is a rich man's sport. Why spend that much on something that you won't eat? And you dug into it immediately about just the passion and where the money goes and on the ground. So
Yeah. And now let the free market speak. Yeah,
agreed.
no, you want a Cadillac? It costs more money than a freaking Chevrolet.
I totally get it. If you've got the means and you want to put the money into a good cause, like
Yeah.
conservation project, where something like the Wild Sheep Foundation, that money is going on the ground, evidenced
Yeah.
by the transplant in those sheeps from the Fanaz back then.
Yeah.
And now it's a huntable population, and the money is going back.
You know what? I'm just telling you guys, all you audience, hunting is the most effective form of conservation. The money that's raised by hunters is extraordinary. We are a wonderful group of humans for the most part,
Mhm.
and let's all band together and love each other. Whether you shoot a crossbow or a bow or a muzzle loader or a rifle, or you shoot a squirrel or you shoot an elephant, it doesn't matter as long as it's legal and done the right way. It's harmonious and symbiotic with Mother Nature, and nature is metal, and don't let these lefties get under our skin anymore.
I
I'm telling you, hunters, love yourselves and love what you do, and don't listen to this woke. It's over.
I absolutely love that, Jimmy. I want to know. You talked about over 80 sheep hunts.
Yeah.
What bit you that made you say, you know what, I want to do this. This is my
I'm,
speed.
uh, I'm going to tell you exactly. I struggle with my weight my entire life. And I booked a sheep hunt every year, no matter what, so that no matter what, I knew in my head that I had to climb a mountain.
Yeah.
And I liked the sheep hunting, but what it did is it increased my capacity for discomfort. And you have two choices. You're on the mountain and you've got to cross a glacial stream, and it's 10 15, 20 yards across. You have two choices. Take your clothes off, go naked across the below freezing water that's coming down the river, and
Mhm.
get your wet and freeze. But you're on the other side of the river. You can put on your dry clothes, or go across the stream in your clothes and have wet clothes all day. You have to make decisions like that all the time when you're hunting. And as I started to hunt more and more, and I did what it did is it increased my capacity for pain and discomfort, and it increased it, increased it, increased it, increased it. And I realized that my success came because I was willing to endure more pain and more discomfort than my competitors. My product was good, my numbers were good, but from the time I was 18 to the time I was 38, I at nights and weekends and holidays were non-existent. And I really believe, for me, that the sheep hunting allowed me introduce a discipline and chosen discipline and pain and discomfort in my life, and at the same time an incredible reward whether you squeeze the trigger or not. I mean, the squeezing of the trigger is 10% of what it's all about,
Mhm.
right? It's there's a lot more to it than just sheep hunting, and then the difficulty and the competitive nature of it is just, it's, I love, the guys that do it, and we're all chasing the same animals, and man, there's just something primal about it. I think it really increased my capacity to handle more.
This this has been awesome, just to learn a little bit more about the why. There's something about it that's just deep inside, and about passing it on, right, to somebody that's never done it before. And I know
Hmm.
that's something you're passionate about, is passing it on to the next generation. And your son shot a beautiful sheep 2 years ago now, or was it last year? I remember seeing it
Last
on
year.
social. And why is that so important to you, to pass it on to the next generation?
You know what? it- I don't necessarily know about passing it on, but because I think that we all have different levels of love for it. It just, with my son, for me, I took him when he was younger, and when he was 8 years old, we shot kids youth season in Illinois. I think he was 8, and I put two pellets in a Thompson instead of three. And he'd been shooting a 243 with a silencer on it and a 22 with a silencer on it, for a long time, and so he knows how to shoot, and he can shoot. But I didn't tell him about the thump that he was about to get with that Thompson. I said, this thing works just the same as everything else. Put the crosshairs on the shoulder and shoot it, Fred. And he did, and it really whopped him. And so I lost Freddie until he was about 18. I lost him on the hunting thing. He's just like, nah,
Right.
Dad. And I was really bummed. And then I started taking him again, and he discovered the bow, and he loves to hunt with a bow. And that's his thing. And my son Freddie's a Renaissance man. He's a purist. He loved everything about it, and he's into the geekitude of it all, the feet per second, and the da da da, and he knows all that stuff. And I'm not into all that stuff, but he's way into it. So now I got a buddy that I can hunt with. This has brought us together, and it's allowed us to have something in common. And he went to the Safari Club show with me this week, and I know we bought a couple guns, and we're going on a sheep hunt together in the Yukon with Lancasters in 26 at Nahanni, and we booked that, and then we're going to go to Turkey, and we're going to shoot ibex in 27, and we're going to go to Botswana in 26 also. I'm taking Fred to Botswana for an Ellie. So you know what? We're going. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. So I know you're a busy guy, Jimmy, and I totally appreciate all this time that you've given me today. So from from myself and all of us at Wild TV and Wild Talk, thanks for everything you do, and we
Sure.
can't wait to see where this goes with you in the future.
My pleasure. And good luck, hunters. Go get them. Share the love. Champion whatever kind of hunting everybody's doing. And if they shoot a big one, just know they got lucky, and you'll get lucky too. If you do it enough, you'll get lucky, and you'll shoot the big one. And be happy for people's wins. And go free enterprise, and go America, and go Canada. Let's kick some ass, everybody. We need each other right now. So
Awesome.
thank you very much.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Kate's Wild Finds. I'm Kate Rundle. We've got some really sweet content on the show today. You're going to learn how to tie your own fly. But before we get to that, we pulled some deadly clips from the internet. Let's check them out in 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
Come here.
All right, everybody, that's it for me today. Hope you enjoyed Kate's Wild Finds. Stay tuned for more Wild Talk.
I think you're in for a real treat. I first met Brandon probably a year and a half ago, just cruising the internet. I just think we're going to have a lot of fun this episode. So, Brandon, first, a huge thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Fly fishing, fly tying, that's going to be kicking into high gear anytime April, May, June here in British Columbia. So, what grabbed you about fly tying? Did you tie first, then fly fished, or how did that work for you?
Yeah. Growing up, it was always with a rod in my hand. My parents both loved to fish, so we'd always have good little getaways. And so I was a fisherman first, and then about coming up on 4 years ago, to be honest, I was a little too cheap to buy the $3 chronomid, little midges or buzzers, whatever you call them. So I thought, hey, I'm going to save a lot of money and get into fly tying, and I didn't see that one coming. But it's been a wild journey and just a rabbit hole amongst rabbit holes, so I've been enjoying it.
What's your favorite fly to tie?
Oh my goodness. I'm going to demonstrate one of my favorites tonight for you. It's a winged caddisfly. I started out with the dry fly hatches just on the surface, and you get some explosive takes. It's very immediate gratification. You see the strikes. And so that's been one of my favorites to tie. Very imitative, and I'm excited to share that with you tonight.
Brandon, I'll turn it over to you. All right, everybody. The time you've all been waiting for. We're going to watch a master tie one of his flies. So, Brandon, it's over to you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Steve. So here, as you can see, guys, I've got a very imitative winged caddisfly pattern. So I'm going to walk you through about 10 to 12 essential tips, not only for this pattern, but that you can use for all your other flies as well. But that's what we have to look forward to, is something super buggy like that. So to start with, these are a barbless dry fly hook. So to start off with, guys, tip number 1, I like to position my bobbin about 1 inch around the hook shank. As I'm wrapping, some guys they'll get their bobbin and their thread will pull out on them, and it just becomes a lot more of an effort to get around. So that's where I like that sweet spot, about 1 inch. And as well, another tip is keep those wraps even pressure all the way around the hook shank. So that's just going to make for a lot more of a uniform bug, and tie it in really smooth there. So this is just dressing the hook. One other tip that I wanted to mention here, we're already up to 3 tips. I'll use the tag end of my thread as I'm tying on. I'll hold it at about a 45-degree angle, and that way each thread wrap is grabbing onto that tag end, and it's falling right into succession there, wrap after wrap. When I tie flies, I like to make every single wrap count, and you'll notice there that I'm using a razor blade to cut that tag end off. I love using these. They're a GSP thread, so that stands for gel spun polyethylene, and they are super durable, but they are very difficult to cut. So if you have your favorite scissors, it will dull it over time. So that's where I like to implement the razor blade and save your best scissors. So I'll just start and I'll dress the hook, and then I'm going to go back up to the hook high here. One thing as well with any type of thread, I'll mention it later when I'm adding some material, but all these threads, they're corded up, and every turn that I make around the hook shank's going to add another little twist in it, and so it's going to cord it up like a rope. And so to counteract that cording, what you can do is you can take your bobbin and you can counter spin it. And what that's going to do, it's tough to see on this very thin, this is a 30 denier thread, so super thin and small, but it makes it almost like ribbon. So if you're ever tying chronomids or midges or anything like that, you want it to just lay ribbon flat, and that's where that counter spinning your bobbin can make it into that little ribbon. So I'm going to go ahead and add some wire to this pattern here. So with any wire spools, I teach a lot of beginners, and I always say rule number 1, whenever you're working with wire, is to use these little retainers on your spools. So what I'll do is I'll always make sure that I have my thumb in place, or in this case, they've got an elastic band. I've had these spools unravel on me, and it's a frustrating time. So what I'll do is I'll take what I need for wire, I'll put that retainer back in there, and then I'll go ahead and I'll trim this wire away. Again, save your scissors. Don't use the tips if you are going to use your scissors to cut wire. I like using these arrow point scissors because they've got a little notched out point right there. And so you can use that as a wire cutter and just get right in there, and it should lop it off pretty cleanly there. And what I like to do is I like to position my wire horizontal to the hook shank. So I'm just got it in behind the hook shank, and because I've counterspun my bobbin, that thread's going to naturally want to jump to the left. If your bobbin's too quartered up, that thread's going to jump over to the right, and it can make capturing materials really difficult. So counterspin it, and it should grab right onto that. With wire here, I've got light pressure to begin with, and then I'm just going ahead, nice even wraps, and I'm going to add more pressure as I wrap along. I don't want to pull that wire out of there, but now it should be safe. And then we're going to utilize a little hook keeper or a material holder right back there on this vise. So that's happy there. Now, I like using peacock herl for a lot of my flies. It's got super iridescent properties to it. So for whatever it is, the stuff has been around for, let's say, decades, and it's great stuff. Fish just love it. It's a fish magnet. So for this pattern, I like taking 2 strands, and I'll grab them by the tips, and sometimes I just want to check it over to make sure that there's no little cracks in that stem. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to, let's give that a counterspin. I'm just going to capture those in and bring those back here. And why I tie these in at the stem, as I wrap this up the body, it's going to become a little bit more thicker and buggier and add to the taper of this fly going forward. So at that point, I've got those secured in there. That's not going to go anywhere. These things are super fragile though, so as soon as a fish's tooth hits them, they're going to pop, they're going to break. So I will use this wire as a ribbing section to help strengthen that. But then another trick here for you is I will invert my vise. This is a nice rotary vise here, so it's a good feature. And I'll pull down and get a little bit of thread. See if I can do this here without busting these. And what I'll do is I'll take these strands and I'll just weave them around. And what's that's doing is it's making that thread kind of the stem base of these peacock herl. And so it's adding a lot of durability, strength to this fly. Then when you're happy with that, I'm going to gently take them. This is a very fragile state. You don't want to nick that hook point. And I'm just going to start building my base here. So I'm just coming, every wrap should be touching, coming back up the fly. And as you can see, not many of those fibers are trapped, but yet they have a very strong core. So it's going to create a nice durable abdomen. And then once I get up close to the head, I'm going to come back and just add a little bit more to that taper. The way the peacock herl is, it's getting a little thicker near the butt section of it. That looks pretty good right there. So that's happy. So then I'm going to take these out of the way and go from the left of them and just work my way with a couple of wraps to secure those in, pull them back, and then one more for good measure here. Just want to capture those and make sure they're not going anywhere. At that point, you can hold on to your thread and they should just pop right out of the way there. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to add a little securing whip finish. Just a 2-turner. You can as well do a half hitch knot. And what I'm going to do is just get that out of the way for right now. And now we're going to add some grizzly hackle to this fly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you another tip how to get this tied in so that it stays perpendicular to the hook shank. And you'll notice I've stripped off one side of this hackle here. So I like to do that with these flies to make sure that it's just buggy enough. Sometimes if it's a mess of this hackle here, so you can go ahead and peel that off as you look at this hackle. Another tip is it'll have a shiny side and then it'll have a dull underside. So we want to grab the left side of this because I'm going to be wrapping over the hook that way. And so I want that hackle to stand up on the hook that way. So I've peeled off the right hand. I've got the left. And I'm just going to choke up on my bobbin. Whenever I'm adding materials as well, here's a free tip for you, is I'll choke up on my bobbin so that I don't have much thread hanging out the side. And that just gives me a lot better control to this thing. So I'm wrapping 1 wrap, 2 wrap around the left, then I'll go in front of the stem here. And I'll crisscross that. And what that does is that's going to make it stand at attention. And then I'm going ahead, I'm just going to get in there like that and make sure that that's not going anywhere. At this point, let me get a little half hitch in there just to hold that in place while I mess around with it. That looks happy, that's not going anywhere. If there is a tiny little bit hanging out there, without cutting your thread, you can just get in there, that stem, clean that off. So that looks pretty good right there. So now we're going to go ahead and I'm going to take, don't mind my hand here, I'm going to take 2 wraps initially at the front of this. And what that's going to do is that's going to prevent it from spinning and corkscrewing in the water. And then I'm just going to go ahead and wrap this back. Nice and buggy. And then once I get to the tail here, this is where that left hand, right hand dexterity really comes into play. I'm just going to swap hands, grab that wire underneath without knocking too much out of there. I'm going to place a wrap of that wire over top, then another one. And what that does, that'll hold that hackle in place. So very similar to how you do a woolly bugger. And then I'm just going ahead and I'm wrapping that. Try to weave it in between so you don't catch too many of those fibers. That looks pretty good like that. And then with this, again, to lock off that material, I'm just going to go to the left of it and then in front, and then I'll go to the left again. And that's kind of still a vulnerable state, so I don't quite want to get rid of that wire piece yet. If I want, clean things up, take my scissor blade, and I'll just come in without trimming too much away and get that tail. So another little scissor trick here. If I am going to make a very precise cut like that, I'm not going to open up the jaws the whole way and cut. I'm just using the very tip of them, and then you can get some precision accuracy. And then I'm using my finger as an anchor point as well. So you can really get around the vise nicely there. So that looks happy right there. What I'm going to do now is create for you a set of monofilament eyes. All the bells and whistles for this pattern. So what I like to do is get about a 20-pound test. This is green color monofilament. and I've got just shy of an inch, maybe about an inch of material in my bead tweezer. What we're going to do is make some very realistic monofilament eyes here. So without burning my fly, I'm just going to take a lighter, melt the end of it here. There, that looks pretty good right there. And we'll melt the other one. And these things, if you can see that, they bead up really nicely. They have an amber exterior and they go kind of to green. So it's a really, really lifelike looking set of eyes. So we're going to go ahead and add that to the fly here. Just get it situated here. And what's nice is once those cool down, I leave them in that bead tweezer, so they're not going to go anywhere. And I'm going to get that wire back there. I'm going to take one wrap and just catch that eye, that monofilament eye. 2 wrap, 3 wrap. Now I can release that, and they're going to stay. They're going to stay on that hook. Now you can tighten up and go with some figure of 8 wraps and just make sure that's not going anywhere. At this point, I'm just going to bring that wire up, and I can use these eyes as kind of a security blanket. I've got a couple of wraps around that, and now I know that that wire's not going to come unraveled. They're secured. I love these eyes because you can finish the fly really cleanly in behind the eyes. It helps out immensely. So a wire tip and trick for you as well. A lot of times we'll just clockwise motion helicopter these out of there. I find if you put a bend on that wire back into itself and hold your thread, doesn't take much at all, and they break right off a lot easier. So next tip, where are these? Tweezers. Get yourself a good pair of tweezers. They help get rid of some of those errant fibers there. Whoops, tougher to do on camera. Shaking hands. Or if they, there we go, if they don't quite get out of there, same fly tying scissor trick there. Get that pinpoint accuracy. So we've got a good base here. Now we're going to add a very lifelike wing to this one. So you'll notice here, one that I've tied, extremely lifelike wing. How we accomplish that, a roll of Scotch tape, matte finish, and a pheasant feather. So I'll go ahead and I'll prepare this. I'll strip back that, and then sticky side up, I'll stick that onto the roll of tape. I'll add some flexible UV resin because that's going to bend and everything, and then I'll go ahead and cure that. And what you're left with, let me grab it here, a very, very imitative wing. And it's super durable. So we're at a point here where I can go ahead and you cut that into kind of a elongated heart. Do whatever shape works for you. But I'm going to add that right in behind those eyes. I'm using them as a guide. And I've got kind of a pinch wrap. And then I can go ahead and I can do a figure 8 and make sure that's not going anywhere. And there, super lifelike wing on that bad boy. But wait, there's more. So we'll go ahead and we can just trim that beak out of there. We've got a good enough tie-in point. At this point in the fly, I'm going to give it a whip finish, and I'm going to show you guys an insane knotted leg technique. So we're going to put that down for right now. We're almost there at the end of it. So get yourself the tiniest one you can find. This is what they call a latch hook. So they use these for carpets, for embroidery. and it's got a little hinge door on it. So that's pretty cool right there. And what you'll need is a pheasant tail. Grab a couple of these pheasant tail fibers. Let me just grab maybe three of those at once. And it's going to be tough to see zoomed out that we are. But what you want to do is make a overhand twist, like you're going to make an overhand knot. We'll move that latch open, just get it past. Did I give myself enough room? What I'll do here, let me just back this out 1 second. Give yourself just enough room, that overhand, just past that latch door. Bring that forward, and as I'm bringing that forward, I'm going to tuck the tips into that little crevice, and then I pull the pheasant tail off the end, and what it does, creates a very cool knotted leg, so kind of like a knee joint or something for these bugs. So you can mess around, you can do a whole bunch of those, different lengths. You can do a double kneecap if you desire. Where's our fly? There we go. It's just hanging out on a thread. Get that inserted back into the vise here. That whip finish allowed that to stay there, so I've got a few of these things made up. Let me gather a couple. What I like to put in is 2 per side. So come in, and just behind those eyes, again, I'm choking up on my bobbin there, get a lot more control, and I'm just going to bring those right in front. That looks pretty good there. And last but not least, other side as well. These things look as buggy as can be. They create a great silhouette on the water surface. And so I really like all of these techniques. For other dry flies, you can incorporate these techniques as well. I'm going to bring those forward and just wrap in behind. Oh, get a good one here. Make sure those aren't going anywhere. At that point, I'm good to snip these away. And we have one final step here, making this thing look really good. Around here we have a lot of squirrels, so I love using squirrel tail. Super spiky, it's got tons of modeling effect. So I'm just going to grab a little chunk. You don't need much of that squirrel. I'm just going to give it, there's a little bit of underfur in that squirrel, and I'm just creating a little tiniest dubbing noodle here. You can add more if you want, but you don't want a ton of this stuff. And then go ahead, you wrap your thread through, give it a little figure 8 if you want, separate those legs. There's going to be some stuff that sticks up. That's great. And then what I'll do is I'll do one last whip finish without catching too much of that material. Pull that through. And there we go. Make sure that's seated properly. And then again with this thread, I'm going to get in there. Just going to cut that out of there. And then you can primp and preen as best you want. Dub that away. Rough it up. And there you guys have it. Tons of tips and tricks to make very imitative looking dry fly winged caddis patterns.
You make that look so easy, Brandon. Where can they go for more information to learn how to tie your flies, Brandon?
Yeah, thank you, Steve. I have all of the social media platforms, so you can reach out on Facebook, Brandon Molzahn, my full name, or on Instagram. My handle is Tying is my vice, and that's same for YouTube, a little bit on TikTok as well.
A huge thanks from me, Brandon, for joining me tonight.
Thank you so much, Steve. It was my honor. Thank you.